So, have you ever actually wondered what proves you own a piece of property? Is it that fancy physical piece of paper you hold in your hand, or is it, well, something else entirely? One of the most common mistakes students make when they're first diving into real estate is just casually saying, oh, the title is the paper. And honestly, it sounds right, doesn't it? But in the real estate world, making that assumption is going to trip you up big time. In this explainer, we are going to break down the exact crucial difference between actually owning a property and the physical document that proves it. By the end, you're going to have absolute clarity on this totally foundational concept. Just a quick heads up before we really get into the weeds here. This explainer is strictly for educational exam prep support only. We absolutely don't guarantee specific exam questions, passing results, or licensing outcomes. Always make sure to double-check your own state's official licensing requirements and approved study materials. Licensing rules, specific terminology, and what the exam emphasizes can definitely vary depending on exactly where you live, so your local guidelines are always going to be your best bet. All right, let's dive into it. When you're preparing for real estate exams, you are going to see the words title and deed mentioned constantly, and honestly, they're often crammed into the exact same sentence. Because they are so incredibly closely tied together in the real world, it is so easy to just kind of blend them into one single idea in your head. But here's the thing, they are definitively not the same thing. Understanding how they compare and specifically where they differ is absolutely crucial to mastering how real estate property transfer actually works. Okay, let's start with title. At its absolute core, title is the legal concept of ownership rights in a property. Think of title as this invisible status, right? It is a legal concept. It's not a physical object you can just pick up and hold in your hand. Having the title refers to who holds the actual definitive ownership interest in that specific property. It also dictates whether that ownership is perfectly clear or if it's maybe currently bogged down by some legal issues. But ultimately, when you have the title, you have the ownership rights, period. Now, unlike that invisible, overarching concept of title, a deed is a very real, tangible thing. A deed is a written legal document. But, it's not just any random document. Its specific, unique purpose is to transfer that ownership interest in real property from one party to another. You can physically hold a deed. You can sign a deed with a pen. It is literally the physical vehicle that moves those invisible ownership rights out of the hands of the seller and safely into the hands of the buyer. Let's actually picture how this plays out in a practical, real-world scenario. Imagine a standard, everyday property transaction. In step 1, when a seller transfers a property to a buyer, the physical deed is signed by the seller and then literally delivered to the buyer. It's a very physical action utilizing a tangible document. Then, in step 2, after that transfer is fully completed and determined to be legally valid, boom, the buyer now holds the title. The physical signing and delivery of the deed is what resulted in the buyer officially achieving that invisible status of ownership. Listen up, because if you only remember one single thing from this entire explainer today, make it this ultimate memory trick. Title equals ownership status. Deed equals transfer document. Seriously, engrave that in your brain. If you can just lock in status versus document, you are going to have the absolute easiest cognitive hook to rely on when you're testing your knowledge later. Anytime you see the word title, I want you to immediately think status. And anytime you see the word deed, immediately think document. But wait, remember a minute ago when I mentioned that title involves whether the ownership is clear? Well, holding a title isn't always perfectly clean and simple. Even if a totally valid deed has been signed and delivered, there are actually some incredibly common title issues that can massively complicate your ownership rights. Think about things like unpaid liens against the property, weird recording errors buried in the public records, or, get this, unknown heirs suddenly stepping out of the woodwork to claim the property. You could also run into straight-up forgery of documents, messy boundary disputes with neighbors, or existing easements and restrictions. The deed itself might have been delivered flawlessly, but the title, that invisible status of ownership, might still have all these messy attachments hiding just beneath the surface. All right, let's put all this into practice with a super quick active recall simulation. Which statement is most accurate regarding title and deed? Is it option A, title is always the physical document used to transfer property? Option B, a deed is the legal concept of ownership? Option C, title refers to ownership rights and a deed is used to transfer those rights? Or is it option D, title and deed mean exactly the same thing? Take just a second here and lock in your answer based on that memory trick we just talked about. And drumroll please, the correct answer is option C. Title refers to ownership rights and a deed is used to transfer those rights.
Let's quickly break down exactly why. Options A and B actually flip the definitions entirely. Title is definitely not the physical document, and a deed is not the legal concept. Option D is just completely out of bounds because, as we established earlier, they are highly related but absolutely positively not the same thing. Option C perfectly aligns with our golden rule. Title is the ownership interest itself, the status, whereas the deed is merely the written vehicle, the document, used to execute the transfer.
To wrap up this explainer, I really want you to take away this one simple phrase. Title is the right, deed is the paper. Honestly, it is a fundamental building block of real estate knowledge that clears up so much unnecessary confusion. And as always, make sure to check your specific local state guidelines and approved study materials because licensing rules and specific terminology can naturally vary depending on where you are. Understanding the precise mechanism of how property actually changes hands is the absolute bedrock of real estate. So I'll leave you with this. If you were buying a house tomorrow, would you be more worried about the physical deed in your hand or the invisible title issues that might be lurking right behind it? Keep learning, keep studying, and keep using these core concepts to build your foundation.